Well, thank everybody for joining us. In particular, I want to thank Director Steve McCraw. He is the director of the Texas Department of Public Safety. So, Director, for one, I thank you for joining us today, but also I thank you as well as all of the members of the Texas Department of Public Safety for all of the tasks they're taking on these days. I think there may have been a time when you had a whole troopers patrolling the highways, and you still do, but there's so much more that they're having to do these days, including dealing with international intelligence, dealing with international crime organizations, dealing with helping to secure our border, as well as going after gangs across the entire state of Texas. And so the task that the Texas Department of Public Safety has assumed is far greater than ever before, but Texas is safer because of what the Texas Department of Public Safety is doing. Also, we're here today, along with the people behind me. We have the Tarrant County Sheriff, Wayburn, as well as the Mansfield Police Chief, Aaron Tracy, both of whom will also be making remarks today. To start out, listen, it's obvious that there is a crisis that is plaguing farmers and ranchers and residents who live along the border in Texas. Their fences are destroyed, their livestock is lost, their homes are invaded, and their neighborhoods are dangerous. Well, to try to address those challenges, I've deployed 1,000 Texas Department of Public Safety officers as well as National Guard, and we have members of the National Guard here with us today. We thank our National Guard also for the multitude of tasks they are involved in these days, one of which is to help and collaborate with the Texas Department of Public Safety to make sure that we do all we can as a state to step up and secure the border. Well, together, they are assuming some of the responsibilities that really are the federal government's responsibility. That includes the Texas Department of Public Safety arresting more than 1,100 criminals and apprehending more than 33,000 illegal immigrants who have come across the border. Well, in addition to the people coming across the border, there is something else that is crossing the border. It is unseen to the general public, but importantly, this unseen thing coming across the border is deadly dangerous. It comes from the border, up Interstate 35, up Interstate 45, up other routes in the state of Texas, and it is invading the Metroplex area. And it has killed people in suburbs in the region that we are in right now. And it is spreading very rapidly. It is a synthetic opioid called fentanyl. Fentanyl is 100 times more potent than morphine. It is 50 times more potent than heroin. Just 2 little milligrams of fentanyl is a lethal dose. It has the power to kill instantly. So get this, to show you the magnitude of the problem that we're dealing with.
We are taking our final break of the hour right here on NewsNOW from Fox as we continue to listen to the Texas update on border security and what is coming across the border when it talks about illegal drugs.
This year is far greater. In just the first 4 months of this year, the Texas Department of Public Safety has seized 95 pounds of fentanyl. That's more than 21 million lethal doses. To put that in context, just the first 4 months of this year alone, the Texas Department of Public Safety has seized more fentanyl than is needed to kill every man, woman, and child who live in the state of New York. This is an almost 800% increase over last year in just the first 4 months of this year. And that does not even include the amounts that went undetected or that were seized by other law enforcement agencies. So it is clear that Biden's open border policies are unleashing deadly consequences right here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You know, some drugs that people, including teenagers, buy off of the streets are laced with deadly amounts of fentanyl. The Houston Forensic Science Center found instances of fentanyl being added to ecstasy, a drug that is largely targeted at teens and young adults. Let me give you a few recent headlines and some more numerical context about the challenges that you're seeing in and around Tarrant County. One headline read, a Weatherford teen bought blue pills on social media. He died days later. That teen died because of fentanyl-laced drugs. Another headline said fentanyl-laced pills and overdoses surge in the Fort Worth area. It is a fatal trend for many. Another wrote, Fort Worth man accused in fentanyl overdose of Parker County 18-year-old. And here's some staggering numbers of what we've seen in Tarrant County. Fentanyl seizures in Tarrant County have gone like this over the past 5 years. In 2017, there were 0 seizures of fentanyl. In 2018, 0 seizures of fentanyl. 2019, 0 seizures of fentanyl. In 2020, they seized 52 grams. In the first 4 months of this year is more than double all of last year, where they have seized 137 grams of fentanyl already just this year. Tarrant County fentanyl seizures increased more than 100% in just 4 months. And this month, as you will hear later on from the Mansfield police chief, this month the Mansfield Police Department had a drug bust where they seized between 3,000 and 5,000 fentanyl pills. In 2021, Tarrant County has experienced, so in this year alone, Tarrant County has experienced 60 suspected fentanyl overdoses. And this places the county on a path to have more than a 50% increase in fentanyl deaths. Well, the Texas legislature, the Texas Department of Public Safety, as well as local law enforcement leaders are all keenly focused on this deadly danger. But it is essential for parents, for family members, for schools, for other entities to get fully engaged to prevent future fentanyl deaths. In the legislature, I'm about to sign a law that creates a new criminal offense for the manufacture or delivery of fentanyl. The punishment begins as a third-degree felony, which will make this law one of the toughest drug laws in Texas. The legislature also has appropriated more than $1 billion for our border security effort. Part of those resources will be used to support and expand the Texas Department of Public Safety's efforts to crack down on fentanyl and drug smuggling. One goal that we have every single day, and that is to use our best efforts to put drug cartels out of business. But law enforcement alone cannot fix this. Families must be part of the solution. Young, unsuspecting Texans are buying drugs that are laced with fentanyl. They are buying a death sentence. We need parents to visit with their children about this invisible danger, because prevention is the best tool that we have to prevent fentanyl deaths in Texas. At this time, I'll pass it off to Director Steve McCraw.
Well, thank you, Governor, and thank you for your leadership on this issue, Governor, and educating the public and the media. Educating, it's very important. As you noted, there's too much at stake here when we talk about lives. We've been blessed in Texas that we have not had the overdose plague that we've seen in Midwest United States, the Northwest region, the Northeastern region of the United States, and we've been thankful for that. I mean, because methamphetamine has been our primary drug that's been a problem. However, just based upon our seizures alone, and other federal agencies in Texas have seized over 400% increase in the first 4 months of 2021. In fact, 228 pounds that the Mexican cartel fentanyl federal agencies have seized in Texas. And so to your point, it continues to increase. The overdoses are a concern, are absolutely a concern. We're seeing death increases in the top 4 counties, and Tarrant being one of those counties. We're seeing those overdose deaths. So fentanyl is a problem, and you indicated it, and I pointed it out very well, that it's the tablets that are concerned. probably more than anything, because the Mexican cartels, like anything else, are trying to dominate this particular lucrative industry. And the way they're doing it is they're producing it in Mexico, and they're doing tabletation, and they're doing pill processing in Mexico. And they aren't real, they certainly have a lot of capability, but they don't really care what happens to the end user in that regard. And we've seen, like you noted, ecstasy. That's a designer drug. That's a party drug for kids. It's basically, an amphetamine combined with an hallucinogenic, and now they put fentanyl on top of it. So we've got basically a synthetic speedball that's out there that kids or youth can be exposed to. And I think that's why it's so important for you to educate like you are, to let parents know we can't afford to have the overdose deaths, the epidemic they've had in the northeastern United States. We just can't afford it. And the Mexican cartel is going to exploit it. Up until now, we've been a transit state, a transshipment state for fentanyl. But clearly, as the sheriff I know and the chief's going to talk about it in terms of now we're a retail market for it, and that concerns us greatly. And as you know well, I mean, the Mexican cartels don't care about people. They don't care about any end of it. People are a commodity when they smuggle them as humans. All of those things, and of course, here fentanyl is just one more example about how the Mexican cartels, can certainly impact the community and the rest of the state and country. But moreover, there's consequences when you have an unsecured international board with Mexico, and this is just one of them.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
And now, Tarrant County Sheriff.
First of all, Governor, welcome to Tarrant County, and we're honored to have you here and Colonel McGraw, and thank you for spotlighting this incredible issue that is a clear and present danger to not only our youth, but all of our communities. And in Tarrant County, as you well said, we've experienced the effects of fentanyl. We still battle the methamphetamines, they're still present, but we have thank the media for helping us get this message out today, because it's going to take place in homes. It's going to take places where dad and moms are talking to kids. They say, guys, so that they're aware of the clear danger that it is. You do not know what you're taking, and it can be very much a death sentence at worst, but it also can be a very debilitating disease that will cause you that you can't do what you used to do. But we are going to continue this fight. DPS has been an incredible partner with us, along with like Chief Aaron and his team, and we're going to continue to battle these things, and we're going to be out there educating and going after these dealers, interrupting the cartel where we can. And you know that open border issue has got to be done something with, and I appreciate your leadership on that, because we've seen methamphetamines in Tarrant County go from $50 a gram to $20 a gram in just a few months. So it's plentiful, and the dangers are out there. The kids are at risk, and I thank you for spotlighting this so that maybe we can save a few lives. But we're headed right now for a 50% increase in overdose deaths in Tarrant County alone.
Well, thank you, Sheriff. Thank you to you as well as your entire team.
Thank you.
Sure. And now we have the Mansfield Police Chief, Aaron Tracy.
Yeah. Thank you, Governor. I really appreciate you asking me to be here. I can tell you that, as you just said, this is a team event. You know, it is no surprise to you that we have absolutely great law enforcement in representing you, sir, in the great state of Texas. And they work very hard to make this a safe place for our families. But even though we would love to celebrate a great arrest that we had just a few weeks ago, the bigger concern that I have is the ones that we've missed, the ones that are still out on the road, the ones that we still need to capture. And with the help of all of our law enforcement partners, I think that we can definitely put a dent in that. And it's all about protecting our children at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. That's what we're doing. We're literally trying to protect our children and communicate to them, and I appreciate so much that you highlighted that you've made that known that this is killing people. Right. This is killing people, and unintentionally, they take those pills and they think that they can handle that, and they just can't. So thank you very much for representing us here on that and bringing this to light. And again, just like the sheriff said, the hopes with this is just to save a life. I mean, if we could save a life, then it's going to be well worth it.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We'll take a few questions.
Governor Abbott, can you give a specific Biden administration policy that has led to drugs entering the U.S.?
Oh, sure. And so the border security policies changed overnight under the Biden administration. One was the elimination of the Remain in Mexico policy. Another was the elimination of the Title 42 policy. Another was the clear message sent that they were not going to continue to build the wall or build the fence and the other was the clear message that they were going to be welcoming in everybody. And so what this does, it opens up the corridors, and here's exactly how the process works. The young migrants who are unaccompanied minors, they surge the border. Border Patrol officers get fully occupied simply processing the people coming across the border. What that does, that opens up large gaps of tens or sometimes hundreds of miles where the drug cartels have the ability to get fentanyl across the border. And that's exactly why we're seeing a dramatic increase in the amount of fentanyl coming across the border. And I think this is a mere fraction of the amount that we will continue to see coming into the state of Texas. As the Director of Public Safety said, historically, this is something that had been going to other regions in the United States. We are just now seeing it penetrate meaningfully in the state of Texas, and it's because of that recent rise in deaths in Texas that we wanted to try to get ahead of the curve and alert communities, as well as work with law enforcement to make sure that we aggressively address it.
And just to follow up, did that increase that you're seeing coincide with the beginning of the Biden administration?
Sure, and so I can go over the numbers again, and that is, in the first 4 months of this year, the Texas Department of Public Safety saw almost an 800% increase in fentanyl seizures over the entirety of all of last year.
Next question.
Is this drug is being produced in Mexico, or just coming through Mexico?
So I'm going to answer part of it, but also Director McCraw knows a lot about it. And the answer is both. And I'm going to tell you what he's told me, and that is some of it is manufactured in Mexico. Almost all of it is transported from Mexico to the United States. There may be some component parts of fentanyl that are brought in from places like China, as well as maybe some other countries. But candidly, all my information comes from Director McCraw, so I should have him answer it.
Hey, as the governor said, it is the Mexican cartel, fentanyl, and they can do it two ways. They initially were bringing it in from China, okay, then bringing it into the United States just to penetrate the markets. But they're now producing it themselves, using chemists, not unlike what they did with methamphetamine. So the Mexican cartels clearly are involved in that. Plus, they're using it now as a combination drug. They're combining it and we're finding seizures with cocaine and fentanyl, heroin, okay, and fentanyl. Okay, and also methamphetamine and fentanyl, which would be like a synthetic speedball, if you will. And they are bringing in precursor drugs. The other part of it, in terms of manufacturing, they're bringing in from other countries precursor chemicals used to manufacture it. And unlike heroin, unlike cocaine, which really depends on the growth of a plant, these are synthetics. So there's much more profit in for the cartels, much more powerful, and the governor went over those numbers. And our concern is that, hey, they don't really care. They're not scientists. They're not certainly anesthesiologists. They're not mixing it. If you don't mix it correctly, I mean, you can cause a death easily in that regard, and that's our concern. And I think it's been reflected in the northeastern and Midwest parts of the nation.
A quick follow-up. Is this a problem, as far as you know, only in the Texas border, or is happening in the whole border?
The whole border, the entire border.
Well, I'll answer it this way, because it's a problem because the way the cartels like to do it, they like to get it across the border in areas that are not border checkpoints. And hence, they use the other regions that are not checkpoints, and there are wide swaths of those areas. But a key point that I tried to make earlier, and that is, once it comes across the border, it does not stay at the border. It is shipped up to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's shipped to, it could be Longview or Lubbock or other parts of the state of Texas, and then on to other states across the United States.
Governor, this is on this side of the border. On the other side, what are we doing with the Mexican government to control this?
Well, that's something that also has seen a decline under the current administration. If you recall, President Trump had agreements in place with President Obrador that had better control of the border, including putting the Mexican military on the border. And that level of collaboration has decreased and diminished under the current presidency, and that has allowed more open territory for the cartels to be able to bring this across the border.
Governor Abbott, on a different subject, turning to the legislature, the lieutenant governor has actually called for a special session saying his conservative priorities have not been passed. Are you considering doing that?
Well, first, Julie, that's pretty goofy, because everybody knows there's only one person with the authority to call a special session, and that's the governor. And only I have that ability, and only I will execute that authority. And here's the way that it works. Not only am I the only one with the authority to call a special session, I get to decide when, and I get to decide what will be on that special session. And here's what I would do if anybody tries to force this. It's not gonna be like it has been in the past, where we'll have 40 items on a special session, whatever. To make sure that bills that I want passed get passed, that will first, the only thing I will be putting on there will things that I wanna see passed. Second, we're gonna go one item at a time. There will be one item placed on the agenda. Not until they pass that item will we move on to another item. So if anybody tries to hold hostage this legislative session to force a special session, that person will be putting their members in the Senate or the House potentially into a special session for another 2 years until the next regular session. Because I'm gonna make sure that we get things passed, not just open up some debating society.
Two more questions.
Governor, same thing on the legislation. How are you, the social media bill being passed, the transgender girls sports bill being passed, and the banning of the taxpayer-funded lobby, how committed are you to all those?
Well, first, I support all three of those, but second, none of them got passed. And so those could be other items that are put on the agenda. There are a multitude of items that could be placed on the agenda, but whether or not anything gets on the agenda is dependent upon the time that we'll be allowed to make sure that we will be able to accomplish other items.
Will you be
Last question.
pushing them? Will you make
So before now and now and in the future, I strongly support that.
Governor, are you concerned that Texans might not see the leadership of our state as unified at this moment, sir?
Well, I mean, look, if you look at the last few days of a session that we've seen over decades, this is kind of how it happens always at the end of the session. It's like the last 2 minutes of a football game or a basketball game. That's where all the action takes place. And what I do know is if the leaders in the legislature will stop fighting with each other and start working together, we can get all of this across the finish line.
Great, thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.